revised corporation code, the Republic Act 11232. This is already a revised of Batas Bilang Pambansa Bilang 68. February 23, 2019, the Republic Act number 11232 or the Revised Corporation Code, the RCC, became effective. That was on February 23, 2019. Replacing Batas Pambansa Bilang 68, the law introduces fresh and progressive concepts aimed at improving the ease of doing business in the country, promoting good corporate governance and afford protection to corporations, investors, and consumers alike amid a fast evolving business landscape. So this is to adapt the fast changing society. So now let's go with some questions and answer Q&A from a reviewer in commercial law. The author is Balbastro. So now, definition of a corporation. What is a corporation? Corporation is an artificial being created. It's an artificial being created by operation of law. Again, it is an artificial being created by law, um, having the right of succession and powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. So before going deeply to the definition, the very new of this, the unique of this Republic Act 11232 is the inclusion of perpetual term, one person corporation, and no minimum capital stack, and participation via remote communications in absentia, and emergency board. Last is the electronic filing and monitoring of systems. So these are the unique of these or inclusions to this Republic Act 11232 for the revised corporation code. First, the perpetual term, no more, it's already perpetual, no more period, one person corporation already. There is already one person corporation, and there is no more minimum capital stack, and there can be participation via remote communications in absentia where using the application for meeting, and emergency board, there will be emergency board, and the filing is already electronically monitoring of system. So again, let's go back to definition. What's a corporation? These are the two requisites or four requisites of a corporation. A corporation is an artificial being. It is an artificial being created by operation of law, having the right of succession and the powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. So this is from section 2 of the RCC. So it is an art. If we say a corporation, it is an artificial being. It the agency that governs this corporation is the Securities and Exchange Commission. Once approved by SEC, then the corporation has the juridical entity. It becomes an artificial being. Diba? There are, under the civil law, there are two kinds of persons. Natural persons, that is the human being, and the second one, it's the juridical person. So this example are the corporation, partnership, agency, trust. Yes. So it's an artificial being created by operation of law. So it is governed by law and has the right of succession. It can succeed in the powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. Next, what are kinds of corporations? What are the different kinds of corporations? So these are stock or non-stock, de jure or de facto, domestic or foreign, corporation by estoppel, and special corporations. So we will explain that later. As a consequence of separate personality, property is entitled to own, di ba? Property, di ba? The powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incidental to its existence. So when it comes to property, the corporation is entitled to own properties in its own name. It should be in the name of the corporation, not the name of individual persons. And obligations, it can incur obligations, it can contract with other being. And rights, it has the rights, um rights belonging to the corporation cannot be invoked by the stockholders and officers, even if the latter owns substantial majority of the shares in that corporation and vice versa. So, right, it cannot be the rights of a corporation cannot be invoked only by the stockholders and officers, even though if the latter owns substantial majority of the shares. Even these stockholders own majority of the shares in that corporation, it cannot be exercised but by that certain stockholders. So that right is being exercised through a board resolution, di ba? Next, kinds of corporation. Yes, the very first is the stock corporations. O corporations may form or organize under this revised corporation code may be stock or non-stock corporation. When it comes to stock corporations are those which have capital stock. Again, if we say stock corporations, um, are those which have capital stock divided into shares and are authorized to distribute to the holders of such shares dividends or allotments of the surplus profits on the basis of shares held. So again, when it comes to stock corporation, it has stock. It has stock and divided into shares and authorized to distribute it to holders of such shares and the dividends for allotments of the surplus profit. So stockholders, it if a stockholders is in a corporation, it means to say it has a share, and at the end of the year, from the profit, it will be the stockholder shall be given a dividendo. Okay, all other corporations are non-stock corporations. So from Balbastro Commercial Law Review, in which a stock corporation is one where the ownership of the interest or equity is represented in the form of shares of stock. So, di ba, when it comes to stock corporation, is one where the ownership of the interest or equity is represented in the form of shares. So, stockholders owned a share. So it is in the form of shares of stock. So when it comes a stockholders has a shares of stock, it means to say that they are under a stock corporation. All other kinds of corporations are non-stock corporation, in which it means to say in which is one where the interest or equity is in the form of membership, diba? In stock corporation, a stockholder has a share. It's in the form of share. But when it comes to non-stock corporation, it is in the form of membership, non-stock or non-profit. So when it comes to a corporation, there can be two, de jure and de facto. When it comes to a corporation de jure, as we all know, if it is a de jure, it is a legal. It is legal. When it comes to de facto, not it's not covered by law. There is defect or deficiency when it comes to de facto. So a corporation de jure is one which has been registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, complying with all the requirements provided by the law. So that is when it comes to corporation de jure, it is registered with Securities and Exchange Commission. So the opposite of that is the corporation de facto. So again, when it comes to corporation de jure, it is registered or complying all the requirements with the Securities and Exchange Commissions, complying with all the requirements provided by law. And while the corporation de facto is one, there is an effort or attempt to comply with the requirements of a registration with the Securities and Exchange Commission, but along the way there is a defect or deficiency. So that is these are the distinction between a corporation de jure and corporation de facto. Corporation de jure, it complies with all the requirements as provided by the law, and it has been granted with a registration by the Securities and Exchange Commission, while the corporation de facto, it tries to comply or it attempts to comply all the requirements as provided by the law, and yet there is no granted registration by the Securities and Exchange Commission because of some deficiency or defect. Now, another kind of another kind of corporation is the domestic corporation. Domestic corporation, the opposite of that is the foreign corporation. When it comes to, if we say domestic corporations, these are corporations organized under the Philippine laws, organized here, established here in the Philippine laws. So the opposite is the foreign corporation. Those are established outside the Philippine territory. Those are established or created from foreign laws. So if we say domestic corporation is one which is organized, one organized or existing under by virtue of the laws of the Philippines and duly registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So that is organized and existing under the virtue, under by virtues of laws of the Philippines and duly registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. A foreign corporation is one which is organized, di ba? One which is organized and existing under and by virtue of the laws of a country under other than the Philippines. So that's the opposite. When it comes to domestic corporation, these are organized and existing under the Philippine laws and granted with registration and granted with a registration by the Securities and Exchange Commission, while the foreign corporation are those organized and created by virtue of law other than laws of a country other than Philippines, organized and existing under and by virtue of the laws of a country other than the Philippines. Next is the so-called corporation by estoppel is no corporation at all. Again, if we say corporation estoppel is corporation or no corporation at all. Um, it is just an equitable concept which the law utilizes to protect innocent third parties due to the misrepresentation of a group of persons as if they constitute a corporation, in effect causing innocent parties to suffer a loss. So when it comes to corporation by estoppel, the creation of that corporation is to protect the innocent third parties, di ba? Third parties believe that a group of people, group of persons forming together is a corporation, di ba? So third parties believe that a certain group of persons together, gathered together, believed to be a corporation. So it is an equitable concept. If we say corporation by estoppel, it's an equitable concept just to protect the law utilizes to protect the third parties, innocent parties due to the misrepresentation. There is a misrepresentation of group of persons as if they constitute a corporation, in effect causing third parties to suffer a loss. So again, corporations, there is a misrepresentation. It a corporation by estoppel is no corporation at all. It's not a corporation. The law, it is an equitable concept of law. Equitable concept of law for the protection of the innocent third parties by misrepresentation of group of persons as if they constitute a corporation. So as if group of persons gathered together representing themselves or misrepresenting themselves representing themselves as corporation, in which in reality they were not granted with the registration, or they are not registered by the with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So here comes the innocent third parties, um, uh, go with their believing that they are a corporation. So the third party invest there or buys stocks. Then because of they are not registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission, they are already they suffered loss. They suffered loss.